Look what I have. It's the first lens from OMDS. It's the 8 to 25mm f4 lens, a much weighted lens, and this is my first impression video about that lens. Hi there, my name is Peter Forsgaard and I am a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And a disclaimer, this lens is not mine, of course, and this video is made before the lens was launched and I had a chance to test it, so thank you OMDS Nordic for letting me test this lens before it was launched. New cameras and lenses are always interesting, but let's get into the lens. Let's start with the look and feel. The lens looks exactly like other pro lenses from M.Zuiko and Olympus and OMDS, and that's a good thing. It's a familiar look, it's a great design, very well made. The lens is very solid, the zoom ring is stiff enough, and so is the focusing ring, and it has an MF clutch, which is good because I was a bit worried because they left the MF clutch out from the 12 to 45mm f4 lens that was launched, I don't remember, 2019 I think it was. The MF clutch is a very good feature because it makes it so easy to switch from autofocus to manual focus, and I personally use manual focus quite a bit, just kind of used to it, so for me MF clutch is a really good feature. And what's also great about this lens that it says Olympus and M.Zuiko on it, so OMDS is using Olympus and M.Zuiko brand, at least for now, and that's a good sign. And it also has an LFN button, which I personally don't use that much, but it could be used for peaking, magnify, and all other features that your camera will offer for LFN button. And for some, it is a really, really good feature. How about you? Do you use LFN button for something? Please let us know in the comments down below. And the lens comes with the lens hood, which is really good because, you know, a sunny weather like this, you might not want to have the sun shining directly to the lens, and the lens hood will block some flares. And that's usually something that we want. Of course, if you want to have the sun in your photograph, then it's no problem. But I always have the lens hood on. I think it's essential for getting the best image quality of your lens and camera. And the lens has a retracting mechanism. Let me check that word. Retracting mechanism, which means that it kind of needs to be turned on before you use it. It's like the 9 to 18mm lens that Olympus used to have. I think that lens is discontinued, so this might be the lens that replaced that. Of course, this is a pro lineup lens and that one was not, but still, it is most likely the lens that will replace the old 9 to 18mm. What about the retracting? Is it good or bad? I think it's a good thing because then the lens is a lot smaller when you're having it like this and you just turn it on like that. It's nice and simple. It's a bit stiff from turning off, and if you don't have it on, the camera will tell you that please turn it on, the lens. But the reason is that it's a lot smaller when you put it in your bag.
The angle of view is 107 degrees at 8mm and 47 at 25mm, and the 25mm angle of view is exactly the same as the prime lenses from M.Zuiko Olympus has. So it's a genuine 25mm. And the 7 to 14mm has 117 degree angle of view, so it's a bit wider. Here you can see the differences. And here you have 8mm, 12mm, 17mm, and 25mm, taken from the same spot. It's handheld, so the crop is not exactly the same, but you get the point and see the range of different focal lengths from here.
The fastest aperture f4, and this is part of the OMDS or Olympus f4 lens lineup. The previous lens, f4 lens, was the 12 to 45, and of course it raised some questions. What's the point to make a f4 lens? But I think there's a lot sense, because then the lens can be a bit smaller, and that's the core thing of Olympus and one of their selling points, that you have a fairly small system. Of course, full frame cameras are getting smaller and smaller, but sometimes the lenses might be a bit huge, and that's why I think the f4 lineup is quite good. What's important about the f4 that it's the same throughout the focal length range. So it's f4 at 8mm and f4 at 25mm and everything between, and that's fairly good. There is also another advantage over the 7 to 14mm f2.8 lens, and that is the ability to use normal filters. This lens is meant for different types of outdoor photography, and you might want to use ND filters and polarizing filters with this when you're out there shooting landscape and stuff like that. And I will talk about that a bit later when we're talking about who is this lens for. And then there's another advantage. The ability to use normal filters is that the wind doesn't affect that much, and you don't need bulky, big filters with big filter holder that are a bit, let's say, hard to use and not the best possible solution for using filters. The filter thread is 72, so it's a bit bigger than the filter thread that is with, let's say, the prime pro lenses, which is 62. So, but 72 is not bad. So what I recommend is to get 72mm filters if you have this lens in need, and then get a step down ring for those 62mm filter threads. And then what's really interesting is that the closest focusing distance is only 23 centimeters, and that's throughout the focal length range. So this might be a very good all-around lens also for macro photography, even though it's not a macro. I think the marketing material from Olympus said it's a half macro, which I don't know what that means, not anything official word, but you can get pretty close with this. So, and that's really good. And remember, it always measured from the sensors, or the position from the sensor, not from the front of the lens. So you can get really close with this one. And the lens also has some special coating for easy cleanup. It's the same thing that they had in the 150 to 400mm f4.5 zoom. If you get some moist to the lens, then it's easy to clean, and you can keep it really clean. And speaking of getting moist to your lens or water, this is fully weatherproof lens, a weather sealed lens, and it's IPX1 according to Olympus material or OMDS material. And that's really good. But remember, you need to have your body also weather sealed to be so that the whole system is weather sealed. Well, let's talk about who is it for. Olympus website says, or the lens material says, that landscape, cityscape, travel, flower, and video. And I can totally agree with all of those. It's a perfect focal length for those things. And I could see using this as my travel lens. Well, yeah, there is just such a thing as travel that we hopefully can do here in the near future, maybe this summer. For me, this focal length range from 8 to 25mm is perfect for those wide city shots. You go to, making those tourist shots, it's really great thing to have a really wide angle. And then for those street photography, portrait street photography, it's 25mm is perfect. I don't know if you more of a 17mm street photographer. Well, you got all that covered too. You have that focal length on this lens too. So very tempting to get this lens because of the good range that the focal length offers you. Of course, for nighttime, f4 might be a bit slow, but then you could have a fast prime if you're more 17mm guy or 25mm photographer. Have one of those M.Zuiko lenses that has the f1.8 fastest aperture, then you're all covered with just two lenses. And if you need a bit longer, then maybe a 45 small f1.8 lens could be a good addition to this one. It depends on your style. But of course, as I said, the f4 might not be the best solution for those night moments when you're walking out and making photographs at night. But then you also have a very effective IBIS on Olympus, so it's not the problem with the shutter speed. It might be a problem with freezing the action if you're that type of shooter. But all in all, for landscapes, for example, hikings, this is just perfect lens. And as I said, you can use normal filters. It's easy to put them in your bag. You don't need big filter holders and stuff like that for your landscapes. And I think that's a good thing. So I think they're into something here now. And this lens is very good for video too, like they said, because the aperture is constant from f4 all the way around. So you can use f4, and if you zoom in, the exposure doesn't change. It's not a big deal in photography, but in video you don't want that. And I already talked about the macro that you have, the 23 centimeter closest focusing distance. So that also, what Olympus said, this is good for, and I think that too, I agree. But what other genres you like to use this lens for? And are you planning on getting one? Because I'm tempted to get one because, as I said many times, it's a very good focal length range.
And then let's talk about the image quality for a while. As you saw from the images, like always, not big issues with the image quality. At 8mm, there is slight vignetting, as you see from this spectacular photograph of a brick wall. But when you're stopping down to 5.6, the vignetting is gone. It was expected that at 8mm there might be some vignetting. And as you see from this same image that there is some distortion. Adding +5 to lens correction in Lightroom, it will be fixed, it's gone. But I don't think this is very bad. Okay, it shows if you're taking images like this, but I don't think this is anybody's main work or body of work, taking images of brick walls. Well, there might be someone. If you know anybody who has made a career photographing brick walls, please let me know in the comments down below. I wonder what was that. But anyways, in everyday photography, there is nothing wrong with the image quality. And stopping down to f5.6, everything is perfect. But let's go back outside.
And what are my thoughts? You probably guessed that I really like this lens. Because of the great focal length range. It's small lens. You can use normal filters with it. And it's easy to carry. It's a small lens. There are only good things about this lens. I know this might sound a bit cheesy that I'm, really appraising this lens, but I honestly, I like the lens. I'm not, as many times I've said, I'm not really a wide-angle guy, but sometimes it's really nice to use because of the 8mm focal length is really interesting, and then you still have the 25mm then, so it's a really versatile lens. But let me see what else. Is there something that I should have said? Yeah, and about getting this lens might even replace my 7-14mm f2.8 lens. Not sure yet, because I haven't really used the 8-25 that much, even though making this video I was really in love almost with this lens. It's a good lens. What do you think? Are you planning on getting this lens? Please let me know in the comments down below. And if you're interested in the Olympus Pen EP7, you might want to watch the video. Or is it on that side? Yes, over there. You might want to watch that next. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.